What up, what up, what up? We are back for another episode of Pete's Corner with Dre. I'm your host, the sports guy, Peter Pac-Man Clark. Out there in cyber world, my boy, D-Money Drizzy Dre.
Yeah, what's going on, people?
And we are back for another episode after I finally got off my slump last week of having like 4 wins, 6 wins, whatever, with a 10-4 week. I was just trying to catch up to Dre after he took the lead over me, but hopefully I continue that. Dre, any comments before we get right into the picks?
Listen, unfortunately, I didn't have a good week, but I did tell you guys that Pete was bound to have a good week, and not only did he have a good week, he bounced back pretty strong. And again, I suggest you keep listening, tuning in, taking our picks, and especially Peter Clark, because like I said, he was bound to have a bounce back week, and usually when he has those bounce back weeks, he keeps it rolling. So,
all right.
Guys.
So with that said, we jump right into the pick that'll be happening tomorrow, about 24 and a half hours from now. The Seattle Seahawks -3 versus the Arizona Cardinals. What do you got, Dre?
Wow, this is a close game. I suggest people don't touch it, especially Thursday games, a short week. I am going to go Seattle, but again, I'm hesitant because, I said a couple weeks ago that if you're Seattle, this team and this deep, it's concerning, it's alarming. And in Arizona, it looks like they're getting a little hot. I know that miraculous Hail Mary at the end won on the game, so sometimes teams could use it as momentum. Sometimes, they can. So honestly, like I wouldn't touch it. But if I did have to go one way, I'll say Seattle covers the spread.
All right, I'm gonna go the opposite way and go with Arizona. First of all, I told you guys don't bet that Buffalo Arizona game. If you bet it either way, you were sweating out the last couple seconds. So I told you don't bet that game. Just enjoy it and bet the over. And the over hit. We both did say Buffalo, and Buffalo did cover because they took a knee, which we would have been very lucky with that because it was 2.5 and they took a knee instead of a kick and an extra point. But we told you just enjoy that game. It was going to be a high scoring. I said it was going to be the best game of the week, and I was right on that. So listen, I think this game is going to be similar. I don't think it will be as close. I think Arizona, I'm just going to ride with them just because they're coming off that hot game. And after coming off a game like that, it's very rare that just 4 days later you're going to see them drop down and lose a game. So I think they're going to win this game outright. However, I'm going to take the points just in case Seattle does win it by 1 or 2 points. But I'm going with Arizona to cover the 3-point spread.
Okay.
Moving on to the next game, the Baltimore Ravens, a 6.5-point favorite over the Tennessee Titans. I'll go first with this. I told you the Titans, with history, was against them. They were 4-19, now 4-20 against the Indianapolis Colts the last 24 games. So they just don't beat the Colts. No matter who it is, they don't beat the Colts. This week, I'm going to say...
that was a good call, too.
Yeah, and this one is going to be partially kind of saying the reason why. Now, I do think this will be close. I think that Tennessee can cover the spread, but I'm going to go with Baltimore to cover the spread. Let me tell you why. Baltimore has all the revenge factor on their side. They got blown out by Tennessee in the playoffs last year. This game is in Baltimore. They talked a lot of shit during the offseason, said they took the Titans lightly, and that's the only reason why they lost. So now, if they come out here at home and lose to Tennessee again, it completely shatters their whole team. I don't think they're a team that's going to shatter that fast. Harbaugh's a good coach. They're a solid team, but I'm telling you, I just think that this is their chance to show themselves as an actual playoff contender. We already know Lamar Jackson has had a lot of problems in big games. He has a lot of turnovers. He had 4 against Pittsburgh. He lost to them the year before. He got blown out by Tennessee. He lost to Kansas City the year before in the playoffs. He hasn't played well in big games. This is a big game for them because of how they got blown out last year. And I think they have to find some way to win this game. So I'm going to go with Baltimore to cover this because if Baltimore does not cover the spread, does not win this game impressively at home, when everything is on their side right now, Tennessee is coming off a loss last week, kind of a bad loss too to Indianapolis. If they can't cover the spread and win this game soundly, people are not going to take them serious towards being a Super Bowl contender. So they have to win this game. So I'm going with Baltimore to cover the 6.5. What about you, Dre?
I slightly agree with you. I do think Baltimore will win this game. But I actually love Tennessee to win. To cover the spread. I actually almost threw it in my second favorite pick of the week. But if anything, I like them just as much to cover that spread. I just think that Baltimore needs this game more than Tennessee. I think that Tennessee is very close in the division with Indianapolis, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Baltimore, if they were to lose this game, they'll be 4 games behind Pittsburgh. So they could kiss the AFC North Division goodbye. But now they're in a weird predicament because you got guys like the Browns, the second place of the division with Indy and Tennessee looking at a wild card. The AFC side is so stacked that if Baltimore doesn't win the division, they could potentially miss the playoffs. But the thing about this game is that super tricky because now Baltimore took a big blow with losing tight end Nick Boyle. He was one of the key blockers that ran this running offense for Baltimore. And the fact that Baltimore also lost their left tackle Ronnie Stanley in a season-ending ankle injury, that was a huge blow, and that's why I think that they've been looking, sloppy lately because they haven't been able to run the ball. They've actually been forced to have Lamar Jackson throw the ball. And obviously, it's not working as well as they thought it would. But with that being said, I think Tennessee is very capable of winning this game. I won't be surprised if they win this game. However, I just think that Baltimore needs it more than they do. So I'm going to say they win. But I love Tennessee to cover this spread.
One caveat I'll give about this game, and it came from Ryan Tannehill talking this past week. They asked him about the amount of carries Derrick Henry is getting because he hasn't really been carrying the load, obviously, like he did last year where he was getting 30 carries a game down the stretch. And he said it's on purpose. He said they don't want to wear him down. They think they're good enough that they're going to be a playoff team. They think they can win the division with limiting his carries. And as we get into the stretch, he's going to get more and more carries, just like he did last year. So I think you can start looking. I don't think this week, because I think it's still too early. But I think around week 13 or 14, you'll see Derrick Henry start rolling. He'll start getting 30 carries, and they'll start pounding the defense a little bit more. Remember, if you look at the stats that Derrick Henry done in terms of yards per carry per month, it gets higher as the year goes along. So he's gonna, as it gets colder, he gets better because you already don't want to tackle somebody that big. And when it's freezing cold, it gets worse having to tackle somebody that big. So as the year goes along, they're going to pound the ball a little bit more, and I'll have a little bit more confidence in Tennessee's picks. But right now, I think it's still a little early to ride Henry's train right now. Give it another about 2 weeks, I think you'll be able to ride with him.
I agree.
Now, moving on to the next game, Carolina. We don't even know if they're going to have Teddy Bridgewater or not. He's questionable to play as they play against Matt Stafford, who is also questionable to play. So this is one of the worst games to ever bet on, I will tell you. But if both quarterbacks do play, I had Carolina winning this game by 4. The spread right now is 1.5 for Carolina, so I'm going to say Carolina covers it. But I'm going to tell you, I would not bet this game at all because you don't know if the quarterbacks are going to play. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey will not be playing, and he's out. So it's a very weird game to bet. I would leave it alone. But for betting purposes, since we're picking every game, I will pick Carolina minus 1.5. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, again, sloppy game. Don't touch it. If you put money on this game, you got a gambling problem. Turn this off right now.
It's like betting preseason football.
Turn this off right now. Honestly, I would feel more comfortable betting preseason football than I would, to be honest, this game right here. Don't touch it. I think Detroit wins and covers this game. But, if Matt Stafford is healthy, and even if Teddy Bridgewater was healthy, I still think that Detroit would do enough just to win this game. But again, barely, because they almost blew that lead against Washington. So who knows what's going to happen, though. But gun to my head, I say Detroit wins, but don't touch this game.
This is shaping up like the past couple of weeks. In week 9, me and Dre disagreed on a lot of picks. He got the huge upper hand. Last week, we disagreed on a lot of picks, and I got the huge upper hand. We've already disagreed on the first 3 games, but we do have solid logics with it, so you just pick on whatever information we're giving you. Moving on to the next game, though, the Cleveland Browns -3 versus Philadelphia. This is a tough one to pick, so I'm going to let you pick first and then give my logic after.
This is my underdog pick of the week. I like Philadelphia to win and cover this game. Philadelphia is actually, despite the loss against the Giants, they finally got everybody healthy for the most part. I think they do just enough to beat this Cleveland team. This Cleveland team's a little bit up and down, but I feel pretty comfortable that Philadelphia is going to be able to get the job done over in Cleveland and not just cover the spread but win.
I agree with you that I'm also picking Philadelphia to cover the spread. More because Cleveland is just one. This is because of Cleveland. Cleveland is one of those teams that usually doesn't give you 2 or 3 weeks in a row of consistent play. So if you see them win a game, they're most likely going to lose the next game. That's just how it is with Cleveland. I don't see them going on a run where they win 2-3 games in a row. So I do think that even if they win this game, it'll be one of those close games, and Philadelphia will be able to cover. I don't mind picking it as an upset, but I'm going to take the points just like I did with Arizona, and go with Philadelphia also. Moving on to the next game. New England Patriots -2 versus Houston. This is another one that I'm kind of picking based off of last week. Houston lost by 3 points to Cleveland. New England had their second straight win. I think New England's starting to get a little warm right now. They still have it, even though crazily to say this, they still have a chance at that division. And like I said, they're starting to get hot. So I'm going to go with New England to cover that spread. Even if they don't play well, I think they'll win the game by a field goal. So I got New England. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, same thing. It's pretty simple. There's nobody on that Houston team that stands out other than Deshaun Watson. I think that Belichick will have something ready for Deshaun Watson, and I think New England does enough to just cover at least those 2 points, even if they win by a field goal. And I think they do, and actually projected them to win by 4 points. So I like them to cover the spread.
Now, moving on to the next game, Pittsburgh -10 versus Jacksonville. Now, this one is going to sound weird on my end because, one, obviously, as Dre has pointed out, Pittsburgh doesn't blow too many teams out, even though they did last week. And two, I also pointed out that it's hard to blow teams out in NFL. And if you blow a team out 1 week, typically you're not going to do it 2 straight weeks. But I'm going to flip that a little bit and say when you get blown out 1 week, or when you're a bad team that comes close 1 week, you usually don't do it 2 weeks in a row. That was usually your last gasp effort. And I think that game by Jacksonville against Green Bay, which I did say they would be close, I think that was one of their last gasp efforts, and I don't think that they'll be able to contend in this game. I think Pittsburgh will treat them like worse than they treated Cincinnati, and I think Pittsburgh will win this game by 2 touchdowns. So I got Pittsburgh. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, same thing. Typically, Pittsburgh doesn't. Again, I'm using the same logic. Go on the road and play or blow out any teams, but I'm going to have to agree with you. I think that with this team, this isn't a Dallas Cowboy team that's very talented going up against Pittsburgh. We're talking about a team that's, that doesn't have their starter quarterback. A couple injuries, couple of key pieces missing.
Having the top pick in the draft.
Exactly. So I think Pittsburgh does enough. I think this is a time of year where not just Pittsburgh, but a lot of teams are clicking on all cylinders, and I think Pittsburgh's doing that. I think Big Ben's looking good now. He's actually having a lot of good chemistry now with all of his receivers, and I think they do just enough to cover that 10 points. I think they win by at least 13 or 14 points, just like you predicted as well.
All right, moving on to the next one. New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints are a 5-point favorite. And it looks like they will be without Drew Brees for the next 2 to 3 games. How do you think it affects them? Do you think they still cover the 5-point spread, Dre?
Yeah. Listen, man, if I could show you right now, listen, I'm me and my W's like Jameis Winston.
Oh, my gosh.
Dude, I'm telling you, dude, that shit's amazing. It's awesome. Listen, give me New Orleans to win and cover this game. I think Sean Payton, he doesn't get a lot of credit as a coach. As far as, being one of the top tiers one, I think he puts Jameis in a comfortable situation where he's not going to ask a lot for him to do. If anything, look, I'll give you a little fantasy advice. If Kamara's healthy, listen, obviously you're going to start him no matter what, though. But now is the time to have him. I think he's going to have a breakout game. Because I feel like they're going to lean more on Kamara, if anything, though. But yeah. Take the over on this game and take New Orleans to win and cover. I think that Jameis is going to have. I'm actually predicting him to have a really good game, especially with all those weapons. We've seen what Jameis Winston was able to do last season with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I think he's going to have a really good game as well against Atlanta. That usually they could put up some points though, but who knows with Calvin Ridley if he's playing or not. And again, Atlanta's up and down. They like to throw games away, so I feel comfortable taking New Orleans in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really think that Drew Brees' arm, he still has his mind, but he's kind of like Peyton Manning at the end of his career. If you remember Peyton Manning at the end of his career, he got a Super Bowl, but he didn't really earn the Super Bowl. It was the defense beating up on Cam in Carolina. Brock Osweiler was even the starter for most of that year and won those games. I think this is how it is with Drew Brees right now. I think his arm is diminished. He doesn't really, he's not carrying the team like he used to. And I think Jameis will actually play better than we've seen Drew Brees play this year. I think we're going to see him go out there and throw 2 to 3 touchdowns. Maybe he'll throw interception because that's what Jameis does. But I think he's going to be very impressive. And this is going to be an audition for him because he's under a 1-year deal. And there's a lot of rumors, and especially with how he's playing, that this could be Drew Brees' last year. So this could be Jameis playing for his next contract, that if he plays well enough, they could franchise him. And franchising a quarterback means that you're going to pay him about $35 million a year. So this could be his ticket with this type of as the year goes along. He's going to start at least 2, if not 3 games. This is a perfect situation for Jameis Winston right now with all those weapons around him. So I think New Orleans will cover that spread by 5. Moving on to the next one, Cincinnati Bengals and the Washington No Names. I did not screw up this time, but I'm going to go with Cincinnati to cover that spread, and this is going to be my second pick of the week. Joe Burrow he's getting better every week. I know he had a tough week last week, but you're going against Pittsburgh defense, was a top 5 defense in football. But he didn't give up. He still kept pushing as much as he could. And I still think that they can put up points while Washington is really up and down. They really don't have an offense. They're on their 3rd quarterback right now. Their 2nd wide receiver is Cam Sims. It's just a mess right now. They're depending on their defense. But I think Burrow will be able to do enough to win a close game, whether he wins by 3, 4, 7, right in that 1 score range. I think it'll be by more than 2. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, I agree. I think Cincinnati does enough to win and cover this game. Like you said, Joe Burrow just, happened to go up against a really good defense and struggled. But, Washington, they're not a good team. I think, Joe Burrow has a solid game. And again, it's only 2 points that they got to cover. And they're actually underdog. I think they went out, right? So if anything, take them, obviously take a money line. But, I feel pretty comfortable with taking Cincinnati.
I must have checked that wrong. That I had them as a 2-point favorite. You're correct. They're a 2-point underdog at 1.5. And I think they're going to win the game outright. Definitely. So, however, moving on to the next one, Miami Dolphins, 3.5-point favorites versus the Denver Broncos. What do you think, Dre?
This is hard. I think, I'm going to say Denver wins and covers this game. I think Tua takes his first L as an NFL starter. But I just think that, going up, in Denver, Mile High, it's going to be different for Tua. This isn't Miami where it's nice and warm. Now you're going up in high elevation where it's cold, the air's dry, it's hard to breathe. You get tired quicker. And for a guy like Tua, with only his 4th start, I think he's going to have some complications in this game. I think Denver does enough. I think Drew Lock does enough to win this game, and I actually projected Denver to win by at least 2 to 3 points. So I'm going to say they win and cover this one as well.
See, this is the problem that I have with picking Denver this week. Drew Lock got banged up last week. It's never good to have an injury and be playing in cold weather. Their tight end Noah Fant got banged up last week. Once again, never good to play in cold weather when you're banged up. And Miami's hot, and I'm going with the first rule of betting is right in the hot hand. And Miami's been rolling for the past 3-4 weeks, so I'm going to go with them again. So I think they'll win that game, and I think they'll win the game by more than a touchdown, in my opinion. I think they're really rolling. The rookie quarterbacks this year, the big 3 rookie quarterbacks with Burrow, with Tua, and with Herbert have all played very well in their starts. Tua, other than that first start, he only had 93 yards, but since then he's played well. And I think it's going to continue.
He still won.
Yeah, he still won. I think it's going to continue. I think they're playing very well right now. Most importantly, their defense is playing well. Their defense is playing better than Denver. And in the cold weather, you always go with the defense. So I'm going to go with Miami to win that by more than 3.5.
And correct me if I'm wrong, man, but if they win this game, they'll be tied for first place in the AFC East.
And exactly what I'm about to say. And to go with that, that's going to because of that motivation, and especially when everybody got on Miami for benching Fitzpatrick to start to in the first place after that bye, I think they're going completely hard, and that's why they're my number 1 pick of the week. I think Miami will definitely win that game.
Yeah, something to keep in mind then.
On to the next game, the Los Angeles Chargers versus the New York Jets. The Chargers are 8.5-point favorite. Herbert got his first loss to Tua last week, but he still did play well. I think that he will continue to play well against this bad Jets team. I think the Jets had their big run when they found a way to be close and have a chance against New England a couple weeks ago on Monday night. They had a bye this week. Sam Darnold still is not back, so it's still Joe Flacco. I don't think he could put together another performance like he did against New England on Monday night. So I'm going to go with the Chargers to cover that 8.5-point lead. I think they win by 10 points. What do you think, Dre?
I agree. This is my favorite pick of the week. I'm going to say the Chargers take care of business. I think they roll here. The way the Jets played against New England, if anything, that was more with the penalties, putting Flacco in position to score. I think it was more of that than Flacco actually doing anything himself. I think, this game has like 33-8 written all over it. I think they blow them out bad, and that's why I'm going to say that this is my favorite pick of the week.
All right. Before we get to the next game, we are actually taping this while they're in the middle of the NBA draft. I'm not sure if Dre has even paid attention to this, so this is kind of a thrown out of a nowhere pitch. There's 3 people that they're talking about the top pick. James Wiseman, who it probably won't be. LaMelo Ball, which you'll notice his last name because he's with LeVar Ball. And obviously, Anthony Edwards, player out of Georgia, who's a very young athletic guy. All 3 of them are being talked about with the number 1 picks to Minnesota. Pick one of them and who's going to be number 1. Ball, Edwards, or Wiseman. And it's really...
I'm probably going to say Wiseman, but again...
Wiseman. I think Wiseman is the best player of the 3, but I don't think he'll go first though.
Did he pick yet?
No, they're actually going to pick him in less than 2 minutes. So I could tell you after our next pick, I could tell you what happened. But the reason why I'm going to say that the number 1 pick will be Anthony Edwards. The reason why is just because that Karl Anthony Towns plays the same position as Wiseman, and D'Angelo Russell plays the same position as LaMelo Ball. And they shouldn't really go off of that. They should just pick the best player. But I think Minnesota is kind of a stupid franchise, and I think they're going to pick that way. So I think they're going to go with Anthony Edwards, even though I think he may be the 3rd best player or 4th best player in this draft. So we'll see what happens in the next 2 minutes. But while they do that, moving on to the next game, Indianapolis Colts -2 versus the Green Bay Packers. Yes, I said that. The Colts are the favorite versus the Green Bay Packers. And because of that, this is my upset pick of the week. I'm going with Green Bay to win that game. I think everybody's going to be riding high off because of what Indianapolis did last week. But I don't think they're on Green Bay's level. Green Bay's playing way too well for the past pretty much this whole year. I think Green Bay's on the way to being at least in that NFC Championship game. Their offense is playing good. Their defense is playing good enough. And I think Green Bay wins that game outright. What about you, Dre?
I agree, Pete. A lot of people are probably going to be looking at the Indianapolis and Tennessee game and Jacksonville Green Bay game, and they're going to probably try to use that logic, though. But again, my logic is, you're going up against Aaron the Game Rodgers, who, probably felt embarrassed after that Jacksonville game. There's probably a lot of people talking about that game and thinking that Green Bay's vulnerable. I think that Green Bay, is just as good as they're advertised, and I think that they're going to win by at least 8 to 10 points in this game.
Yeah, the weird part about that is that if you watch that game, which probably a lot of people didn't because it's Green Bay versus Jacksonville, but if you watch that game,
they could have covered.
Got a lot of breaks. They got a return for a touchdown, so they got a lot. Rodgers had a good game. They couldn't stop Rodgers.
He did, yeah.
It's just they just got lucky breaks that kept them close. So I don't think they'll be, like I said, just like it's hard to be a bad team that's close 2 weeks in a row. I think it's hard to be on the other end. So I think Green Bay bounces back, even though winning that type of a game shows you that how much of a championship team they are. That everything went against them. They didn't have their best game, and they still found a way to win that game. So I think they'll be able to do that against Indianapolis and win that game outright.
I agree.
The pick is in, but they haven't announced it yet, so we'll go to the next game. Minnesota Vikings -7 versus the Dallas Cowboys. I'm done picking the Cowboys because they've screwed me way too many times this year. Even though it's a 7-point spread, I think Dalvin Cook's going to go nuts, and I think Minnesota wins this by 10 points. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, this is my second best pick of the week. I'm going to say that Minnesota wins and covers this game. That Dallas gives up a lot of yards on the ground, and they're going up against, in my opinion, the best running back so far this season, in Dalvin Cook, and I think they cover this pick. But with that being said, Pete, the pick is in right now. They're gonna make that announcement. You want to go ahead and follow up with that?
Yeah, and the pick goes Anthony Edwards. He will be the newest Minnesota Timberwolf. Like I said, He's an explosive player. He plays the shooting guard, small forward. He can play both wing spots. But I think they picked him because he's not playing point guard like LaMelo, and two, he's not playing center like Karl Anthony Towns. So it doesn't mess up with what they currently have. While in my opinion, in today's modern day basketball, you just put the 5 best players and let them decide what happens. Like you look at a team like Golden State that was the dynasty team even before they got Kevin Durant. They had Draymond Green, who's a 6'6", 6'7" guy playing center. They didn't go out there and force getting a center. They just went out there and put the 5 best guys on the court, and they dominated 173 games, broke the NBA record for wins, and they did it with a 6'7" center. And nobody had even thought about doing that before. Just pick the best player. They'll find a way to work it out on the court. Like, they've been doing this their whole lives, whether it's AAU or whatever in high school. You put the 5 best people, they'll find a way to play. So we'll see what happens. Edwards, I think, will be a good player. I just don't think he's as good as Wiseman or Ball, but we'll see what happens. Most of it is a crapshoot. But
hey, let me ask you a question now. Now, Golden State has a number 2 pick.
Yeah.
I remember reading earlier today, and not that long ago, that they were planning on giving away the number 2 pick for like another top player in the league. Do you think that still happens, or you think it's too late, or if you don't think it's, or if you do think they're going to draft somebody, who do you think they go with?
Well, I think that they I know they have talked with the Chicago Bulls earlier to try to get Wendell Carter, number 4 pick. They actually did make that offer to the Bulls. I don't think the Bulls accepted that. I wouldn't be against if they did as a Bulls fans, but it looks like they're not accepting that. If they do stay at the pick, I think they're still trying to do it. That's why I think they'll wait to the last second to pick. But if they do keep with the pick, I think they'll take Wiseman, who I think is the best player in the draft. And he would make their lineup completely sick because you still got Curry there. You still got Klay Thompson, who did get hurt today, like probably about 30 minutes ago. He got hurt during a practice today. So they're going to be team doctors are going to be checking him out to make sure it's not serious. But if it isn't serious, you got those 2. They traded for Andrew Wiggins, who's a good young scorer at small forward, still only like 22 years old. They have Draymond Green still there, and now you're adding an athletic guy that's similar to like a Chris Bosh, where he runs the court like a deer. He's 7'1". He can block a lot of shots. He can rebound and everything. Christ. Like he's a missing piece to where they don't have to make a trade for another top tier guy. They will have it right there with what they have. So
they're gonna have it with a. And they're gonna have it with big key pieces around the rookie, and he's gonna be on a rookie contract, so they don't even gotta pay him.
Yep. And I tell you this is the easiest thing. The easiest thing for a big man to do is play on Golden State because you never have double teams because you can't leave Steph open, you can't leave Klay open, so you never. And Draymond's a very good passer, so you never are able to get double team as a big man. So he's gonna kill the league underneath, just getting rebounds and putbacks and all that stuff. He's gonna be great underneath.
I'm sorry, listen, I know I'm not the biggest basketball fan, but I've said this before. And even without KD, if Golden State is healthy, which, it looks like they're on track on being healthy, and, hopefully Klay Thompson's okay. Dude, to me, the team in the West is Golden State.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Lakers. I know they got a squad.
Nah, screw the Lakers,
but now we're Harden looking like he's going to split. And again, like I said, Golden State being healthy, I think they're the team, despite them, having a horrible season due to the injuries. But I think they're the team they're going to be the team to beat in the West's upcoming season.
I agree. Like if I had to, for those top 3 players that we named before, if you had to say what Anthony Edwards probably would be, Donovan Mitchell. So he can be a good player. Donovan Mitchell is an all-star. Wow. He's a good player. If you ask me what LaMelo Ball could be, it could be a healthy Shaun Livingston. Now, much people don't remember how Shaun Livingston was when he was healthy. He was a potential all-star before he wrecked his knee and it completely killed his career. He still was able to get championships with Golden State, but he wasn't the same. He was he was pretty much similar to what Penny Hardaway was, except Penny Hardaway was more explosive. James Wiseman, I think his potential is David Robinson, who's one of the top 50 players in all time in the sport. So,
and it looks like the pick is in too, by the way. So it looks like Golden State never gave away that pick. So
yeah, they didn't trade away the pick, so they will be picking second. And I think they'll take Wiseman. We'll see what happens. While we're waiting for them to announce that pick, Kansas City Chiefs -7.5 versus the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think, Trey?
I think Kansas City wins this game. I think the Raiders cover. The Raiders are playing some good football, and in that first game where they were able to do pretty much whatever they wanted with they beat up on them, man. They were getting to they were getting to Patrick Mahomes, and again, I keep referring back to the Tennessee game with back in the playoffs in the AFC Championship game. If they had a solid pass rushing game, that then in my opinion they would have been in the Super Bowl. And again, but compared to the first victory with the Raiders in Kansas City, that's what they did. They were sacking Patty Mahomes. They were bullying him around. They weren't blitzing. They just allowed the linebackers to do their jobs. So they were getting to him, but I think that Kansas City does enough just to win this game. I think they win by 5 points, just enough for the Raiders to cover this game.
I agree with that. I think the Raiders will cover the spread. I think KC will win the game. I look at this as that it's almost like people will look at KC and just pick KC all the time. While if you look at how they played against the same Raiders team, like how much of it do you expect to change in a couple weeks? Like they played the same team and the same Raiders team beat them a few weeks ago. Unless they make some drastic changes, it's going to happen again. So this is a game that if you want to try to add a lot to your parlay, you put Raiders in their money line. I mean, they just beat them a couple weeks ago and they kind of dominated that game. So I understand if you want to play it safe, take the 7.5 points. I think you'll win it that way, but I think they have a legit chance to win this game. I just think that people will look at teams, and this is why betting is so interesting because as I always say, odds are not made for who Vegas and whoever makes the odds thinks are going to win. They're made so they can get bets on both sides. They want to make money.
Yep.
So they got to have people bet on. If you make this a Kansas City 3.5, 4.5 point spread, everybody's going to pick Kansas City. So nobody's going to pick the Raiders because they're going to say, oh, you're only giving 3 points, 4 points. I'm taking Kansas City. But now that they made it 7.5, they get people to bet on both sides, on the Raiders and on Kansas City. And
they make money no matter what.
Yeah, they're going to make money no matter what. They're going to get whatever their vig out of it. So I think the Raiders are going to cover the spread. I think they have a legit chance to win that game. And that game's going to be on Sunday night, so it's going to be on TV for everybody to watch. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. But moving on to the last game of the week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -4 versus the Los Angeles Rams. What do you think, Dre?
With a little bit of hesitation, I'm going to say that the Tampa Bay covers this game. But again, with hesitation, because the Rams have been playing some pretty good football. But the thing is that Tampa Bay, man, they're just too up and down for my liking. It's a little weird with Tampa Bay. I'm gonna be honest with you, man, because sometimes we'll get a Tampa Bay team that'll struggle against the Giants, that'll get blown out by the Saints, but then they'll look good against other teams. But the Rams have been consistent. They've been very consistent. They've been playing pretty well. Their defense looks like they're starting to click.
Yeah.
And they could very well win this game though. But I'm going to give Tampa Bay another shot and the benefit of the doubt. Say they cover this game.
I'm going to go with the opposite way and go with the Rams. I think Tampa Bay, as you said, has been very up and down. I think the Rams have gotten off their initial push. I remember after the first, I think it was 5-6 games of the year, they only beat teams in the NFC East, and then they lost to teams outside the NFC East. They seem to have now leveled it off to where they've shown that they are a solid team. They still may not be a Super Bowl contender yet, but they are a good team and good enough team that I think that they will beat Tampa Bay, especially if Tampa Bay isn't playing at their top-notch level right now. And listen, everybody's going to be on Tampa Bay this week. They see what their ceiling is in terms of what they can do when everybody's there, when everybody's rolling. We see with Gronk, and listen, I picked them as one of my top picks of the week last week. But I think you have to take them on a game-by-game basis. I don't think you could just say, this is Tampa Bay, they're like New Orleans, they're going to cover every week. It's all about matchups. Just like in boxing, styles make fights, it's just like that in football. Some teams just have the key and find ways to slow other teams down. So, just like I said, the Giants, they find ways to slow Tom Brady down. It had nothing to do with, I think the Giants are close to Tampa Bay. It's just they know how to stop Tom Brady. So I think it's another situation where I think Donald in the middle, he's going to put pressure in the middle. I think Brady always hates pressure up the middle because he's not really the most athletic guy. And I think it's going to bother him. And I'm going to go with the Rams to cover that 4-point spread. But just to give you an update, James Wiseman has been taken as the number 2 pick in the draft to Golden State. So they will have a very optimal starting lineup to have a a young guy that is that athletic at 7'1" in the middle of that's a rim protector in the middle of their lineup. So it's going to be very fun to see Golden State back. And I don't think they should make a trade. I don't think they should trade the kid. I think they should keep him. I think that's a great talent to their team. And I think Golden State's on their way to being back to what they were.
That's crazy. I agree, man. It's crazy in the season, right, where the Golden State were playing, pretty much probably one of the worst teams in the league due to the injuries. Yep. COVID just happened up here and then just shattered the whole season. The season really didn't have that much meaning. The only meaning it really had, in my opinion, was, the Lakers winning the chip pretty much for Kobe. That's how I'm looking at it from
Kobe. That was for their own selves.
That's how I'm looking at it from a casual fan's point of view. But with that being said, the season really didn't have it. It was tampered. But it's crazy how Golden State just kind of took the back seat, got a high draft pick, got a playmaker now, and now everybody's healthy. And like I said, it looks like, in my opinion, they're probably going to be the team to be in the West.
So before we end the show, I actually want to keep it going a little bit because I want to add a little bit of boxing in there. Plus, I want to get to the Bulls pick while we're on the air. They picked 4th, and they're on the 3rd pick right now. But a lot of talk about Terrence Crawford possibly leaving Top Rank, obviously because there was some comments of Bob Arum talking about the split between him and Spence and who should get how much. And then you had Dana White coming in there and pretty much adding fuel to the fire. What's some of your comments on, first, do you think we're going to eventually get a Crawford-Spence fight before they're out of their prime? Keep in mind, Terrence Crawford's already 32, Spence is already 30. Do you think we're going to get it within the next year or so when they're in their prime? And 2, do you think it'll happen at all?
I think we'll get it. Next year. I think May's a little bit too soon. I'm thinking if not September, which I think they should capitalize, because that's always a big month for boxing. And I understand that, with the Mexican holidays, but just because it's a Mexican holiday, ideally you would want to have a
Neither
top.
one of them is Mexican.
Exactly. What the point I was going to say is that typically, ideally, you would want a top Mexican fighter fighting on the holiday, but that doesn't matter because Floyd pretty much. Yep. Laid it out so exactly so that it could be anybody's holiday as long as you're a good fighter. Mm-hmm. You could throw on a pay-per-view. I think it happens either next September or maybe probably in a year from now, maybe November. No later than next year. I think it does happen. All right, and I do think that Bud does leave Top Rank.
Oh, okay. That was going to be my next question. That when that fight does happen next year, do you think he will still be on Top Rank?
No.
So you think the split is gonna happen? Now, I don't remember how long the contract is. I could check up on that and find it pretty fast, but I don't remember how long the contract is. I know he recently re-signed with them probably about a year or so ago. So I'm not sure if it was a fights contract for a certain number of fights or if it was a time contract for a certain amount of years or anything like that. But I'm sure you can easily find out that from Google. But you think he will not be on Top Rank when that happens?
I don't think he'll be on Top Rank when it happens. I think he might have to do one more. I think he might have to do one more pick. One more fight. The reason I said pick is because I just saw LaMelo Ball get picked, and it's funny because his father doesn't look thrilled.
He's going to Charlotte. That's why he's not. Listen, I can tell you, his father probably wanted him to fall to Chicago because he wants all his sons in big cities. Like, he obviously wanted his Alonzo in L.A. and everything. So he probably wants his son, whether in New York or Chicago or one of the big cities. So he probably won't be happy that he's going there. So, but
that show was funny, man. They were saying how the father might have to see MJ on a one-on-one because MJ endorsed LaMelo Ball to go to Charlotte.
But I'll tell you this is I bet on the first 3 picks because, like I said, it was very tough to see who would definitely go first. And a lot of people did think Wiseman would go second. And then it was tough. Would Ball actually fall to 3rd or would somebody trade up to 2 to get Ball? So I've actually won money on the first 3 picks. The 4th pick for the Bulls, even though it was a tough one because they're the one team that nobody really knows what they're going to do. And the name that I've heard recently that I don't really want, Patrick Williams out of Florida State. He's a long defensive guy, really good defensive player, not great offensively yet. Another guy that I'm not too high on is Denny Avicii. He's a European player out of Israel, 19 years old. He was playing in a 20 under league in Israel, and he won the MVP for that league. But they want to compare him to Luka, and he's definitely not Luka yet, but he's a good passer. He's 6'7", he's 220, 230 pounds, so he can be a good, actually he's like 6'8", 6'9", so he's a good player. I just don't know if I want that type of player. The guy I would love, even though, like I said, I go for talent over position and need. If you go for talent, I'm going for Obi Toppin. He was the player of the year in college. He was dominant at Dayton. He reminds me a lot of Amari Stoudemire, so he's very explosive. And I understand that he's not great defensively, but nobody in the NBA is really great defensively right now. You just try to put it together as a team. So I'm hoping that in the next 3 minutes that they'll say that we'd say Obi Toppin, even though I doubt we will. I think we'll probably go with the European player, and that's who I bet us to take as the European player, so we'll see what happens. What do you think about upcoming pick? Do you think the Bulls go with the European player, or do you think they go with Toppin, or do you think they go with the wild card, Patrick Williams?
I'd probably go with the wild card, honestly. Again, and I'm just going based off of what you're saying. But hopefully they do go with in this case, hopefully they don't go with the European, so that way they do get the talent. But but let's see, they're 2 minutes away.
It's funny. It's funny because they're showing all the Bulls players and all the ball players. They're the first two brothers to be selected in the top 5 picks in the draft, and it was weird because you look at their talent. And Ball was good at UCLA. He was a good college player. He hasn't really done much in the NBA as of yet. His other brother didn't even make the NBA. He was the one that got in trouble overseas and was almost thrown in jail because he stole something when he was at an overseas tournament. And now you got this one who they say may be the most talented of the 3. And I do remember, and a lot of people remember, when he was throwing up like half-court shots in high school because his coach just wouldn't coach him and just allowed him to do whatever he wants. I heard he has gotten better. He obviously put on some weight, but it's a wild card. You go into this, and you can compare this to the NFL draft. It's always picking a wild card when you're drafting.
Yeah.
So
the
Bulls pick
and the Bulls pick is in right now. Yep.
So we'll see who the Bulls pick. They were 22-43 last year, so they were a bad team. However, they do have a lot of talent. They have Zach LaVine, who's a 25, 30-point scorer. The biggest reclamation project is Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen, in his second year, was 18-9. He looked like he was on the verge of being a 20-10 guy, which is the standard for like all-star in NBA. And this third year, he just went right back down. So that's the reclamation project, and which is the reason why I don't think that they'll take Obi Toppin because of that. He is the guy that they want to be their star. So the Bulls selection is in. The commissioner is making the announcement, and the Bulls end up selecting
Patrick Williams.
So they do go for the wild card. They go for the defensive wing guy. So we'll see if it works out for them. I don't like picking a defensive player in the top 5 picks of the draft, but obviously they know they can score. Kobe White is a scorer. Zach LaVine is a scorer. They hope Lauri Markkanen can come back and he's a scorer. So if Patrick Williams is a dominant defender, I would say that they still have to go out and get another wing guy. And if Patrick Williams is the guy coming off the bench as a backup wing, then I think it's fine. So we'll see. They still got a lot of work to do. So, but that was the rumor that hit pretty much over the last 24, 48 hours that they were going to go after Williams, and it looks like they did. Any last comments before we end the show, Dre?
No, obviously this was an unexpected special edition of Pete's Corner, but definitely, guys, tune in, share. It's getting to that point of the season where it's actually fun. I mean, it's always fun to me. I love football, especially during hard times like this, and it usually keeps your mind distracted from all the negative shit going on in the world with the virus, with politics, and any other that. But now's the time, mid-November. I always say that after Thanksgiving football, it becomes more interesting because now we start to see teams that are gonna, that are pushed for that playoff spot, that last playoff spot, teams that are gonna be eliminated and have no shot at a playoffs. But yeah, guys, and with that being said, now's the time to make some money. Now's the time to capitalize on those moments. And like I said, me and Pete, even though we do have a lot of different picks, we do have a lot of good points behind our picks. And Peter Clark's been hot lately too. So again, capitalize on that. Share the streams.
You got everything. You got all the information. Share us on. Listen, share that link on YouTube. Share Spotify. Share Apple Podcasts. For Dre, for myself, we'll guys catch you next week. This was another episode of Pete's Corner with Dre. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, people.